All right, so picking up where we left off, I'm going to finish up the, I went through 2,000 on this. I don't think I showed you that. So I've got to pick up with 3,000 now. I've got both the paper to do it by hand and to do it with the disc. Unfortunately, here on the top, I burned through in a couple spots. Now, I made the mistake of not taping that edge off here. And the reason I did that, it was because of my experience with the bonnet, that as I was not really rolling off the edge, but at that flat spot there, I just didn't quite make it. So that was a mistake, but now I got to go back and fix that. And I also rolled over the edge, so that's probably going to be tricky, because I really am now leery to be able to buff that or anything else, because I'm going to burn through real quick on that. So obviously I'll have to go back and touch that up and figure out. I haven't really done an experiment yet on touching stuff up, so I'm going to have to see how that works out for me. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this and see if I can get it looking good. All right, through 3,000 is done. I'm going to start buffing. There might be some spots, especially under here, and that I'm just not going to worry about. You may notice that I ended up taping the entire seam off. That's just something I'm going to have to work out either by hand and some compound, and see if I can get lucky with that. I'm too afraid to just burn through everything. So lesson learned there, obviously. I'll tape off all around the boot lid. That's another hard edge. You'd think that I would have figured that out, but. So I'm always watching YouTube videos and everything to try to learn how to do this process a little bit better. And this is a random orbital buffer. I probably have been referring it to different things incorrectly. But essentially the reason I went with this is because it's a little bit more forgiving, a little bit harder to burn through than just a rotary. And the reason that is because not only does the thing spin just in a circle, but it also spins kind of almost in an oval, for lack of a better way to put it. So if you were to trace this out, not only would it spin this way, but the whole thing would kind of spin in an uneven pattern. And what that does is it minimizes swirl marks and spinning scratches and things like that. But the trick is, well, actually, let me show you here first. You'll see when I'm going to start it up real quick, and you'll see it's going to, you can see it kind of moving in an uneven circle, and then once it gets up to speed, it'll really start spinning and it'll look normal. So hopefully you could see that on here. And like I said, it's kind of hard to force this thing to do that without turning it on. The problem comes in with this, there is a little bit of an art to using these things, and like the video that I watched the other night and didn't really realize, is you can stop it, and this is what makes it more forgiving, is you can stop it from spinning like this in a regular circular pattern just by holding your hand on it. And so there's a clutch in here or something that allows that to happen, but it still spins in an oval pattern, and that's what gives you swirl marks. So the trick is when you're using this thing is you don't want to put enough pressure on it to lock up it spinning in a circle and only spin in an oval pattern. And I'll try to show you here real quick how that kind of works. And I'm just going to start it up and put my hand on the thing and kind of stop it. So hopefully you were kind of able to see there where the text pattern kind of froze in time, and it just stopped spinning. And that's forgiving if you're messing up, but it also can introduce swirl marks. So when you're doing a contoured panel like this, it's very important to try and maintain as much of the wheel and the pad as flat to the surface as possible. So you'll see me, and I've done this before, but I haven't really paid that much of attention to it because I didn't realize the significance, but you'll see me following the curve of the panel, hopefully you will anyway, as I do this. All right, done with the yellow and orange pads on there. It's okay. There's those burn throughs if you can see there and there. I ended up untaping that whole edge and just trying to be as careful as I could to pick it up. Otherwise, it was just gonna not work. You probably won't be able to see, but they got cloudiness in here because I got the sandpaper in here, not thinking that I wasn't gonna be able to get a round pad in there. So I got to come up with something for that. You may also notice I took all the tape off. Biggest reason for that is because I don't want the tape to sit on here more than, you know, like a week or so. And I was getting towards my week, or it might have even been a week. So instead of taking any chances, I just take it all off. Tape is cheap, paint is not. So there's some scratches and stuff like that, but overall, it's I'm happy with it. So it's not so hot under here over top of the exhaust pipe, just because I couldn't get in there with the buffing wheel. So between the corners in here and over there and then under there, I might take some hand buffing to it, but otherwise I'm going to stop the cutting and buffing tonight and move on to something else just to kind of break up the night a little bit. So I recently put shrink tubing. I just picked up cheapo shrink tubing from Harbor Freight, 1/4 inch wide. I had put new wire guides, whatever they're properly called, in here. So they got the shrink tubing on them just to prevent some chafing, and those are ready to go. Just heat that stuff up. So I'll go ahead. I'm going to put the both the turn signal light and the brake light on here and show you and get the wiring ready to go on that as well. Now, if you notice, this goes in with the fat end down at the bottom to keep the light itself level. And there's also the little notch in the light here, and that goes towards the bottom as well. Now, I'm not going to totally tighten it up yet, but I do. It's looking good on the back here. Come around and show you. All right, so again, this design of the lights had the 2 eyelets. So I've got an eyelet here and an eyelet here. These are my 2 wires. Now, fortunately, I don't have to solder any of this stuff. It makes it really easy. Black, obviously, for the return line, and then the green and white for the signal itself. So I got to strip these back, but I'll go ahead and get these stripped back, put them in the bullets, plug them right into the light, and that's really all there is to it. Got the wires stripped. Feed them through the bullet. Now I'm leaving the wires untwisted so that I get some spreading, so they get spread out and make better electrical contact. Hopefully, anyway. That's the idea. So the black's going to go down here where the ground is, or the return is. And then the power is going to go right in the center. All right, give it a little look here. Everything looks like it's making contact. Maybe not the ground, hold on. All right, so those are nice and tight. And then when I'm ready to go here, I'll just go up and cinch this up here. Next up for the turn signal, I pointed these out before, I think, little rubber washers, and they just go on the screws here for the light and just prevent incidental leakage or water into there, I guess. And they also provide like a capture so that you don't have, that screw doesn't go flying out on you. So I'm going to go ahead and put those guys on there. All right, you can probably see that there with the little rubber washers. We'll go ahead and get it screwed down. All right, snug this guy up a little bit more now that I know I'm in there okay. Find the little knob that's on there. Go into the bottom here. All right, and they're nice and tight. And it even works. Now these plastic lenses look like crap compared to this nice new paint, so I'm pretty confident I can shine these up just like I can shine up headlights, the plastic headlights on newer cars, but I'm leery to do that quite yet. So I've got a bunch of practice ones that I showed you before that are broken. I'm gonna do it on those first, but obviously for now I can't have that nasty looking tail lamp on there. So the show you something here with the brake lights that I just figured out. So let me get this thing turned off and we'll go show you that. This is the foam seal that goes inside the lamp there. Forgot to put that in. It's got little cutouts there for the standoffs for the lens. So it just sits in there. And the lens goes back on, so now it's done. Got a couple of the rear tail lamps here. And I showed you the other day that a couple of them are cracked and I don't really want to reuse them. So here's the one I was trying to use, and the problem is that I'm not getting any continuity from this plug here into the bulb. So it's not in great shape. It's kind of a little bit of corrosion and stuff in there, copper corrosion. So I was going to pull out this other one, and lo and behold, there's no plug. So this is out of the black car. I don't remember breaking this, but maybe I did. But now I'm obviously short a connection. So I can steal it off of here, but it's all pop riveted. There's no screws or anything in here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drill this out. And I don't want to use this, obviously. But these things are probably, I don't think you can get just the bases. I think you have to buy the whole thing. And I haven't asked on my favorite forum yet on whether or not somebody can sell it to me. But I think I'm going to go ahead and drill this out. I don't intend to use this one anyway. Salvage that and then maybe drill these holes out and see if I can come up with something to secure them in there. I'm sure I can get thin screws or even other pop rivets. All right, well, that was easy. No problem there. It's all sorts of stuff going on here. You got a piece of plastic here just to protect stuff electrically, I assume. And that kind of goes all the way around. And then you've got a little piece of melamine or cardboard in there. And that's additionally prop riveted, held in here and here. So you can't really take the thing apart very well. But it came apart just fine. So I don't know. I might be able to soak this in purple power or something like that, hopefully, and try to get some of that corrosion and stuff off. I think I'm just going to go ahead, since I've already bought into having to drill it in. I think I'm going to go ahead and drill it out of the other one that I can't get continuity in, and just to see if I can get that cleaned up as well. Got all the lights apart here. Got them cleaned up. It's just like I had said, I soaked them in purple power for several hours, and it took a wire brush to them. Came out okay. I mean, they're not perfectly clean, but you can't really get in all the nooks and crannies without taking some chances of damage. So I got number 4 screws there with a small nut, obviously, and that fits perfectly through that hole. So I'm just going to mount them and then put a spot of blue Loctite on there. Couldn't find any lock washers that small, but that's fine. I did do a continuity check from the plug here to the tab, and this you just notice this third plug here that doesn't get wired up. Little test here to show you how this works. So positive ground car, so I got the red lead hooked up to the ground. Obviously you need to figure out what wire goes to where for the side. So you got a brake lamp, which would be bright, and then you've got the parking lamp, which would not be as bright. So I'll touch the lead on this one over here. All right, so that seems like that would be relatively dim. Oh yeah, that's pretty bright. So your parking lamp, or excuse me, your brake lamp's going to be the one on the left, and then your tail lamp is going to be the one on the right. So I'll go to the wiring diagram. Off the top of my head, I think the parking lamp is the colored wire, and the brake lamp is the red wire, but I'll double check that and wire it up appropriately. All right, so the tail brake lamp here, wires will come in through these holes down here, plug into this connection and this connection. There is a third bullet hole or a bullet connection right here for the return. That doesn't get, for the Spitfire, it doesn't get a wire because the taillight is grounded right through here, through the body and the chassis of the light itself. So I got the screws in there holding my little plug. So I'll go ahead and get the rubber seal on there, get the wires mounted through, and get it put together. All right, so like I pointed out, these two holes are where the wires go through. There's no corresponding holes in the rubber. This rubber piece isn't made all that well, frankly. These standoffs in the holes up here, there's like rubber standoffs in there. They don't really line up all that well, so these things aren't great, but they'll work. So I'll have to line this up and punch a hole in the rubber so the wires can come through. Otherwise, I'm going to be pinching the wires between the rubber piece and the body, and I obviously don't want to do that. All right, well, you gotta love that. Signal lamp, tail lamp, brake lamp, all work. Wonderful thing. Next thing I'm gonna play with here is the license plate lamp. Now I painted this, and it's there's a run in it, but I'm not gonna cut and buff that. I'll tell you. Two electrical connections, a ground, and the ground here actually, and the supply here, and there's wires in the back of the car, and I'll show you those. So the electrical side of this is brand new. The inside, this was a while ago. I had to make this plate. This plate I saved from the black car. You cannot get these plinths anymore. I'm going to clean the glass up. This is original glass. That I have like 3 of these somehow, but I've got the original glass, though it did come. You can get the electrical kit, and it came with the glass, and it came with a new one of these covers here. This is an original cover. I'm going to clean all that up just using rubber compound. Now the plinth has a piece of rubber that goes here and just offsets it from the car just to give some protection. And this is from the black car, and it's in pretty rough shape. It's pretty brittle, and it's not in rough shape, but it's very brittle. For the life of me, I can't get this license plate thing on the plinth. This metal sheet here that goes inside of here and offsets it and allows you to attach it to the back of the car. They were totally destroyed on all the ones that I had, and I'm confident now, because this is such a pain in the rear to get together, that there was probably captive nuts on the back of these. So what I've done is cleaned up some of the epoxy, and I am putting flat washers down first because I drilled the holes out a little bit too big, and the nuts, I'm afraid of, are not going to really line up that well. So I'm going to go ahead and just tack flat washers in there, get my weld on, and then come back through and tack nuts on there. And that'll make it hopefully a lot easier and everything. Got the washers welded in. You can see what I've got here. Just everything's clamped, and then I got the ground strap clipped to the clamp to give me so I can get in there since it's all painted. And when I'm all done with this, I'll clean it up and go back and spray paint just primer over top of it. So I'm going to tack this nut in, and then I'll do the other nut. Got the bracket all primed up, ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get that reinstalled, and hopefully it'll be a lot easier now. So now I'm going to move on to nice shiny bumper, just because obviously I am in make it look pretty day instead of cut and buff day. So I want to get the feel for how these are going to go in. Now these are metric fit-ups, metric threading in here. And all of the hardware that it came with is not sufficient to connect, so I don't know if it's me or if they thought it was for a different car or what, but it's not just not the right hardware, a lot of it. So some of it is. So I'll be able to, the bumper fits like this, and then there's a post that comes through here through a support, and then the overrider all gets connected and bolted into here and all that kind of stuff. A lot of this stuff's just not simply a long enough bolt. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fit up what I can fit up, and then probably run to the hardware store real quick and get some metric fittings, metric bolts, and see what I need and get that stuff. Got the bumper bolted up. On the outside of the car here, there's just a bolt that runs through here. Now this is the support bar that goes inside, kind of bolts in through underneath the boot. So this goes underneath the car, and then the bolts come down through on top inside the boot. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in real quick. And then you can see this slot down here in the bumper. That's where that hole will get a bolt to go through. All right, so that goes in like that. And then the overrider here, you're going to have one bolt that goes through there, and then that extension piece. So this is what the extension piece looks like, and it's just a bolt inside of a tube. And then inside the bumper here is another support, kind of like what I just bolted on, or inside the boot is another one of those supports. So the bolt goes through there. The tube just provides support so that it doesn't float around in there. That bolts into the overrider like that. There's a grommet that goes there, and then the rubber that gets covered. Now I can't really do the bolts because I don't have the metric stuff, but we got to see how this bolts up down here. All right, so that's going to look something like that. Looks pretty good. I got to see if these are handed. They very well may be, these overriders. I didn't look real close. So now I need the bolts that'll get me through there and attached up. I need those in metric. I need 2 sets of those, but otherwise I have everything else. So I'm going to make note of all that stuff, make sure I get the right stuff. I'll bring the overrider with me and come back and put those things on. So little garage break. All right, so just that quick, I'm back with the proper hardware. I also put the little rubber pieces on the inside here, and that's just so they don't rub against each other, and gives you a little bit of a tighter fit. I had mentioned that I thought these were handed, and they are. You probably can't see it, but there's a little 2- stamped into this, and a 2- stamped into that. The other side has a 2+, so they are handed, and the one that I had thrown up here was the wrong one. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll put the little rubber grommet in here. Everything's still kind of loose, so that it'll kind of fit up. So you want to do that before you don't want to tighten anything, because it's all subjective kind of. And I'll go ahead and stick this rubber grommet in, and then go ahead and get this fit up. Now I kind of had to blow that grommet out a little bit to make it fit over the tube. I'm not so sure that that's the right grommet. It came with I had ordered this hardware mounting kit from Rimmers before I knew that I was going to get these bumpers, and it came with these grommets. So, but it works. All right, everything looks good. Still loose. So these 2 bolts here, I'm inside the boot. These 2 bolts are what go to that bottom bar that shoots out. These other 2 bolts here are to come across to this cross member. And this goes out through that tube into the top of the overrider. The bolt that's back in there, you can see that guy. There's a pretty heavy duty rubber washer on the inside of that to keep rainwater out. And then that comes through and bolts in here. And if you can see that, I put a rubber washer there too. That's not stock, at least according to the drawings that I found, but I wanted to put a rubber washer in there because of paint, obviously. And then you got, going to be a little dark under here, you got that bolt that comes in underneath through that support into the bottom of the overrider. So now that that's all set in there, I'm going to go ahead and snug everything up and see how it all fits finally. Well, the bumper's not fitting real well. You can see the big, huge gap that's here.
The bottom support I didn't put on there because it just wasn't working at all. And even without it, it still is not, the gap is just not what I want to see. So I'm going to stop playing with it for now. I've been wasting enough time on that. I did get the license plate plinth on, so that was the trick to get those captured nuts on there. That helped out a lot, so now that's in there. All right, we're going to have a little science lesson of the day, electrical theory-wise. Zoomed in on the turn signal there. I'm going to go in and put the car into the right-hand turn mode, and you're going to see the turn signal start to flash. And then as time goes on, the flashing is going to slow down. So my question to everybody is, why is that? So let's see what happens. All right, we'll hit the flash, starts flashing. I would say that's normal flash. And you can see it's starting to slow down a little bit now. Now I will tell you that it has nothing to do with the temporary electrical system that I have. It has nothing to do with the rest of the lights are not in the circuit, none of that. You can see now that it's pretty noticeably slower. So again, I don't have a prize to give away or anything like that. But put in the comment below why you think this turn signal is slowing down the way it is. In my next video, I'll give you guys the reason for this, and we'll see if we have any winners. All right, everybody, that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Well, I decided to do some bling and some lighting and get away from the cut and buffing here today. Didn't get to any of that on my weekend visit, but they're got to come through some stuff on the bumper. A question for you. I've been trying to use a microphone, if you can notice it there, to try to make the sound a little bit better. I'm not so sure. I'm not convinced that it is any better. If you guys can let me know whether or not you think it's worth it, and I'd appreciate that. But otherwise, have a good rest of your week. Be safe out there. I know everybody's life is upside down, and it's probably going to be for a while. Enjoy the time that you have with your family, and hopefully everybody stays healthy. I know my kids are out of school for the foreseeable future, so we'll see how that works out for all of us. So take care, be safe. Cheers.